Hey everybody, how is it going? Hot stove starting to heat up. Let me get the comments here in the right place. Go ahead and leave your comments below and we'll talk about them. So I know I said I wasn't going to do anything until after New Year's, but seems like the hot stove is starting to heat up. A lot of times nothing happens between like early Christmas week and then New Year's. You know, guys go on long vacations with their families and things like that. But it feels like the hot stove is heating up. I mean, maybe the Padres just kind of, struck while nobody else was paying attention. But they picked up Blake Snell, which helps the Yankees because, Blake Snell is a tough left-handed pitcher in the division. Obviously was, a key factor in the Rays going to the World Series last year. The Padres also go out and get Darvish, Darvish. And they got a relief pitcher too, and I think they were going after somebody else. But the Padres are pushing all their chips into the table. That's going to be a tough rotation, especially when Clevenger's back. Wow, Padres are going to be no joke. Luis Castillo, that's who I was thinking of. So I mean, look, the Rays definitely got weaker. But that doesn't give the Yankees an excuse to just stand pat at this point. There's still a lot of improvements out there to be had. There's no excuse yet to have not picked up a pitcher. We're into almost January. And I know that the season is probably going to start later and that the Yankees lost a bit of money last season. But come on. We need some pitching. Right now the rotation is this. It's Garrett Cole. You got Garrett Cole. Then you got, who's number 2? Jordan Montgomery maybe? Guy who had a 5+ ERA? Or is it Domingo Germán, who didn't pitch at all last year? Or is it Davy Garcia, who's 21 and appeared in 6 games? Is it Jonathan Loaizaga? I don't think so, but I mean, they don't have a solid number 2 or solid number 3 right now. Maybe Jordan Montgomery could be a number 3 next year. I like Jordan Montgomery. I think he's got some talent. I think he's going places in this league. But the Yankees definitely need another pitcher. Lori C says, I don't want to hear about a team worth almost $6 billion talk about financial constraints. I'm right there with you. Let me see if I can make these comments a little bigger. And Luis Castillo. Yep. So let's see here. Okay, so we got them a little bigger now so you guys can see who's commenting. Yeah, I mean... and Strizzy the Don brings up a good point. He says that the Yankees kind of dominated Blake Snell. But, yeah, I mean, they got to him pretty well. Clint Frazier got to him in the playoffs. But still, he's still a nasty pitcher. He won a Cy Young a couple years ago. So even if the Yankees hit him, not every team in the division does. I think he had a 3.24 ERA last year. So, and the Yankees got to do something about their bullpen in addition to their rotation, right? Because they lost Tommy Kahnle. Tommy Kahnle was going to be hurt anyway, but he signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I had that on my live stream last time, and I think I forgot to mention it. Tommy Kahnle getting a 2-year deal out in L.A. He'll do well in L.A. I mean, it's a smart team. They're going to know how to utilize him. He's got the nastiest changeup in baseball, and once his arm is healed, there's no telling what he can do. Let's see. LeVar says the Yankees are weaker at the moment also. I agree with you. 100%. They got to do something. I feel like they're just laying in the weeds. I'm surprised that nothing's happened with Masahiro Tanaka at this point because he's been so solid for them over all these years. But, if you're trying to save money, you're not going to invest it right away in Tanaka first. You're going to try and get something else. I'm shocked that Trevor Bauer hasn't made his decision yet. I still don't think he's going to go to the Yankees. He's still my pick. If I had the money, if Brian Cashman put me in charge for one day, the guy I'm giving the money to is Trevor Bauer because I think pitching above all else is the most important thing. I think if you have a great number 2 in the playoffs last year, then you're up 2-0 on the Rays in that series, and you probably win in Game 4 with Jordan Montgomery on the mound. You don't even need to go to a Game 5. Then you would have had Garrett Cole lined up for Game 1 of the American League Championship Series. So really the season hinged on Game 2 of the Division Series. We didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly what happened. So, Cashman going dumpster diving again. He likes to do that. David Fred says they'd be stupid if they get rid of DJ LeMahieu. So that's another thing I want to talk about. So let's assume for a second that the Yankees really are in financial straits, right? Let's assume that, they maybe have $30 million to spend. There's a few different ways that they can spread that around, and I think that Cashman is waiting till the very last second until he has to cash in his chips to do it. You can give DJ LeMahieu 20 or 22 million, or you can try and get him for 18 million, so you have 12 million left to spend elsewhere, either on bullpen upgrades or on like a utility person. Or you can go all out and get a pitcher for roughly 30 million. You could probably get Trevor Bauer for 30 million, but you're going to have to give him, they've already confirmed he won't sign a one-year deal. You're going to have to give him a longer-term deal, which I don't know if Cashman wants to do for somebody who I'm not entirely sure fits in with the Yankees culture. Now, that's a different discussion. Maybe the Yankees culture needs to change a little bit and be more accepting of a guy who wants to vlog in the clubhouse. But somebody said in one of my comments that, the Yankees are all about tradition and things like that, and I agree with that. So I think that it's a long shot that they get Trevor Bauer, even though he's the guy I would give the money to. Here's a good one. LeVar says, add Carrasco to Lindor. I think it means and Lindor. That's not a bad idea. If DJ LeMahieu signs elsewhere, if you don't want to pay 20 plus million for DJ LeMahieu to age at second base or wherever, it makes sense to go out and see if you can get a Lindor and Carrasco and find a way to make it happen for about 30 million. I think Carrasco makes more than 10 million. If somebody has his salary, pull it up. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough move to pass up on. Really depends on what you'd have to give up. But I feel like the Yankees don't need wholesale changes. They don't need massive restructural changes. You don't want to, tweak it too much. You really need some more pitching. You'd like to keep DJ LeMahieu. It's going to be hard to do both for 30 million. That's why I think the Yankees might be suited to make a couple of other types of moves. I talked a little bit about on Twitter about Wilson Contreras. So Wilson Contreras is the catcher for the Cubs, and I'm going to go to my Safari screen for a second and show you Wilson. Gary Sanchez. Wilson Contreras this year, 243, 7 home runs, 1 WAR, 106 OPS, so he's a slightly better than average hitter, but he's a good defensive player. Look at his defensive numbers. 1.4 D-WAR, 1.8, and then 0.7, and then this year, of course, in just a fraction of the season, 0.2. So he's a two-time All-Star, same as Gary Sanchez, but I don't see any 150s or 160s or 120s in here. He's consistent. That's what you want out of a player, consistency. I remember one year when Ricky Henderson showed up late to spring training for the second consecutive year, mind you. They asked Don Mattingly, who was the Yankees captain at the time, about that. They said, Donnie, how do you feel about Ricky Henderson being late for the second year in a row? And he said, at least it's consistent. That's what you want out of a player, consistency. All right, so let's take a look at Gary Sanchez and Wilson Contreras on Baseball Savant. So we're going to look at Safari here. Okay, so this is Wilson Contreras. You can see he's in the 66th percentile in exit velocity. Looks like 88th percentile in hard hit percentage. You remember Gary Sanchez, I think, was 92%. We can cross that over. He's at 92. So exit velocity-wise, Gary Sanchez beats Contreras by 20-plus percentage points here and then by about 4 percentage points here. But let's look at these other areas. Expected batting average. Gary Sanchez is at 4th percentile. 46th percentile for Wilson Contreras. More contact, more consistency. Slugging percentage. Contreras, expected slugging, is at 60th percentile. Gary Sanchez is at the 54th percentile. So even though Wilson Contreras doesn't have the power of Gary Sanchez, he doesn't hit those 485-foot home runs, he's expected to slug a bit higher. He still is in the 70th percentile in barrel percentage, whereas Gary Sanchez is in the 97th percentile, so that's pretty good. But K percentage, he's in the 35th percentile, so he's in the bottom third of the league almost. Not quite, but almost. But that's not nearly as bad as in the bottom 2% of the league in K percentage. Gary Sanchez in the bottom 11% in whiff percentage, the amount of swings and misses. And that's about the same, 12% here for Wilson Contreras. So they're about even. But look at this framing number. 85th percentile for Wilson Contreras. That's one way you can improve your pitching is by having a better catcher, a better framing. 37th percentile for Gary Sanchez. Let's look at those numbers again. 85th percentile, 37th percentile. And you can see Gary Sanchez is slow, 12th percentile, 64th or 54th percentile for Wilson Contreras. So, you know, you'd have to give up something to get Wilson Contreras. You'd have to give something up for him because he's a good catcher, and there's going to be a lot of teams that need a good catcher that are vying over that position. So, hey, you know, it's something to consider. You know, if you really are not sure about Gary Sanchez, and I'm not, if I'm running that team, I'm not sure about Gary Sanchez. I might have to pull that trigger. All right, so let's talk about some of the other things here. So diehard Yankees fan 447. By the way, this guy's got a pretty good YouTube channel if you watch him. And if you're listening, dude, I don't know if you signed off already, but if you're still listening, your microphone has a bit of an echo. So maybe invest in something. I've got a Yeti. It's a pretty easy mic. It's pretty cheap. It was about $100. But your content is good. So everybody check him out. But I think that you could maybe get Contreras and then move Gary Sanchez. But whatever you give up to get Contreras, you basically have to assure yourself that you can get as much for Sanchez, which I don't know if you can, because I think Contreras is a better player. So you might take a slight hit in your farm system. As we saw with the trades of Darvish, Snell, the cost of trades isn't as high as some people think it will be. For a guy like Contreras, I bet you could get him for some, you know, double-A pitching type of thing. Daniel Adorno says, I'm not buying Yankee stuff if they have money, feel like they're a crying wolf. I mean, there's no way to tell, but I think they're doing okay. So, yeah, I think Contreras is somebody that you need to look at. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, somebody said over here just a second ago, and this is why I didn't respond, because I knew I was going to talk about this. Let me see if I can find the comment. Al Chavari says, do you think DJ is coming back? Now, that's something I've talked about a few times. The further we get into this, the less confident I am that he's coming back. I feel like he's holding firm at 5 years, 125. He's earned it. He's worth it. He's been a top 5 MVP finisher 2 years running in the biggest market in the world. So it's hard to say that he can't ask for that type of money. But if you look at his home and away splits, as I've had brought up to me many times, his stats away from Yankee Stadium are obviously not as good because he's gotten very adept at using that right field porch. So, I don't blame other teams for not wanting to give him $125 million either. So I think what's going to happen is he's out there exploring the market, and he's going to come back to cash, and he's going to say, look, this is my best offer. Can the Yankees beat it? And at that point, the Yankees are going to, just go to their line in the sand number, which is how much have we budgeted to spend on DJ LeMahieu? And if it's below a certain point, then you re-sign him. But if he's asking for $22 million, if he says, I got to get $22 million, I got to get 5 years, and the Yankees are saying, we're not going to go more than a $20 million AAV or average annual value for 5 years, total of $100 million, then I think you're going to see Cashman start to wheel and deal. He's already been having conversations with people. We know he was talking about Bell when Bell was eventually moved to the Nationals. We know he's been having conversations. We know that there's something to these rumors. So the fact that you keep hearing, or you at least heard a lot early on, Francisco Lindor's name mentioned, that tells me that there's some smoke there. And where there's smoke, there's usually some fire. And those things can turn quickly. I'm sorry if I hit the mic. We've seen before when the Yankees lose a big free agent, they're quick to make a move. Back when Robinson Cano signed, the Yankees reacted immediately by using their budget on their next option, which was Jacoby Ellsbury. Now, obviously, Ellsbury was a disaster. He's going to go down in Yankees lore as one of the worst free agent signings in history. But, the Yankees, they have their priorities. And I don't think that Cashman was lying to us when he said that DJ LeMahieu was the top priority. But I think it's DJ LeMahieu and pitching. I think he wants to use that $30 million to secure DJ LeMahieu and to maybe trade for a pitcher who's $10, $12 million right now, something like that. Get DJ for 18, spend 10, 12 on a pitcher, or maybe get a young pitcher, maybe move some prospects to get a younger pitcher who's ready and controllable, and then spend on relief pitching, or maybe, you can swing a deal to get some relief arms. I think that's more likely. He's done that in the past. We remember Chad Green was a guy who was acquired. I feel like it was Justin Wilson, maybe, that went from the Yankees to the Tigers, and they got Luis Sessa and Chad Green. I feel like that was the deal. I could be wrong. My memory is not so great these days. Pandemic, everything kind of runs together. But I feel like Cashman would be better at trading for a young arm that maybe the team doesn't know they have. For instance, Domingo Germán, they got for, I think it was Garrett Cooper. Domingo Germán, or with Garrett Cooper possibly, Domingo Germán was valued on the Yankees' perspective as the best pitching prospect in the Marlins organization, and I don't think the guys trading him really valued him that high, and we saw what he did. He was an 18-game winner in the major leagues. I still think that he is maybe a bit overvalued by Yankees fans. I don't want to say overrated. That's got such a negative connotation, but he's not a guy who's going to be a Cy Young contender, and he's getting ripped in winter ball right now, by the way, and not in a good way. I don't mean like, getting ripped. I mean, that kind of getting ripped. So that's not so great. But I feel like he's a guy who can be solid. He can be consistent. He's got a good frame for pitching. He's tall and skinny. He's got a very whip-like action. He's got a good motion. So I feel like Domingo Germán is a guy who, he can be that number 3 or 4, but I don't want to count on him because he hasn't pitched at the big league level in over a year. But I feel like the Yankees, they're not going to rely too much on the stats he has in winter ball. They probably told him to go down there and just, work on his command, work on certain pitches, get the feel for pitching again. He's probably not too concerned with results. But anyway. JC Dinosaur 514 says Wade is a bench bat. We need someone better. Well, Wade is a bench player. Wade is the super utility player. So I've never liked Tyler Wade offensively, but he is a pretty good defensive player. He is kind of a bonehead on the bases. I know he's fast, but he makes a lot of dumb moves on the bases. Getting caught off on, without tagging up on fly balls a few times. He got picked off once or twice. So I've just never been a big Tyler Wade guy. I would prefer that they spent a little bit on like a Tommy LaStella. I don't even know if LaStella is still a free agent. Last I checked he was. But, a veteran bat, preferably that hits from the left side, that can play shortstop, that can play second base, and that can hopefully play third base, even though you have a couple of third basemen. I would like to see more out of Miguel Andujar next year. Andujar's been swinging the bat really well down there in the Dominican Winter League. He's a guy that, he's basically got to prove that he can still do it. I've mentioned this in the past, but there's a lot of new subscribers, so I'll talk about it again. Greg Bird had the same injury, a torn labrum. The labrum is a ball, and it's like a tissue that goes around a ball and socket joint in your shoulder. I tore mine in 2008. It's a really painful injury, but it really only affects you when you're doing certain activities. That's why Andujar tried to play through it. You remember he had the surgery, he came back, and he wasn't the same. Same thing happened to Greg Bird. Greg Bird had that surgery, and it was one of his many injuries, and when he came back, he just couldn't hit a fastball, and we saw the same thing with Miguel Andujar. Frank Saratus asks a great question. I was looking into this today. I think his name is Tomoyuki Sugano. I did a little. I'm going to post this back up here. He's a Japanese pitcher. I think he's got pretty good stuff. He's a good command pitcher. He's got a good slider, but he's still negotiating. I'm not 100% certain on the posting deadline, but it's usually a 30-day waiting period from the time he's posted. And so at some point soon, he's going to have to make a decision, because once you make a decision, they still got to go through, the final negotiations, the physicals, dot the I's, cross the T's. So usually a few days before that 30-day deadline is when those posting deals get done. Sagano's a guy I like, and I think the Yankees like him. And I think the Yankees like having Japanese players because, you get a lot of revenue, a lot of attention from Japanese media when you sign Japanese players. And if they're worth having, good players, guys like Masahiro Tanaka, Hideki Matsui, they make you a lot of money. And in a time when the Yankees are supposedly losing money, I think it's a good idea to go out and get somebody. Let's see. Brad Hand. So we don't know why the Indians passed on Brad Hand. Somebody said that they were concerned about his physical well-being. I don't mean well-being. That doesn't sound great, but apparently the Indians passed on him for $10 million, which is a pretty good price for an effective relief pitcher. Let's take a look what Brad Hand did in 2020. I got Baseball Reference pulled up. Hang on. Okay, so we're going to go to the computer screen again. So Brad Hand had pretty good numbers this year. He appeared in 22 innings, 29 strikeouts. He's a lefty, which is good. He's still young. He's just 30. He's going to be 31 this year. 2-1. And then look at his career numbers. He's been around a long time. He's been pitching in the big league since he was 21 years old. He came up as a starter, which tells you that he didn't have a lot of success as a starter because he's now in the bullpen as a lefty. But ever since he got to the bullpen with San Diego in 2016, he's been really good. Over those, 2016, 17, 18, 19, over those 5 years, I don't math, 320 innings pitched, 434 strikeouts, and a 2.70 ERA. I like that. And I like lefties in Yankee Stadium. So Brad Hand is definitely a guy that the Yankees should consider. All right, who else we got here? Danny C. Danny C says DD reunion. I think that's just kind of a pipe dream. I know we all like Didi Gregorius. I really like Didi Gregorius as a player and as a human being. I think he's a great clubhouse fit. And clubhouse chemistry means a lot. I mean, look at that 2017 team. And Didi was a catalyst for that team. He's a left-handed hitter. He's everything you need. But unless he wants to come back for 1 year, and look, if you sign DJ LeMahieu, Didi is not coming back. I could see a scenario where DJ LeMahieu signs with the Blue Jays or someone like that, and the Yankees sign Didi Gregorius to play shortstop. But then look, Didi is not as good a hitter as DJ LeMahieu. He's just not. So you're getting worse offensively. He's not as high an on-base percentage guy. He doesn't really walk, but he does give you that left-handed threat in the middle of the lineup, which I think is pretty good. Let's see. Weird how the Yankees haven't given Boone an extension. I was thinking about that too, at least not publicly. But Aaron Boone is kind of on the hot seat, in my opinion. Although Brian Cashman did say recently in an interview that he wants 10 more years of Aaron Boone. NYO says, Trevor Bauer, is he coming to the Yankees or not? If I had to bet, I'd say not. I just don't think that they're going to give another 7, 8, 10-year contract to a pitcher, especially one who may or may not be a culture fit, unless he had like a strange contract where he had an opt-out after like 1 year or something like that. Trevor Bauer, I think, stuff-wise, is a great fit for the Yankees. Analytics-wise, he's a great fit. He's worked with Matt Blake, I believe, who was the Indians pitching coach. I don't know if they work together very much because I think Blake oversaw kind of the minor league aspect of stuff, and Trevor Bauer already was a major leaguer when the Indians traded for him. But I'd assume that they work together on the side and in spring training, or they at least know each other. But Trevor Bauer, look, he's not a guy that is a suit and tie, buttoned up style guy like the Yankees like to have. So I just don't see it happening. I would love it, personally. I would be a big fan of that. FG, and I love the Spock, by the way. Live long and prosper. Fellow Trekker here. And it's Trekker, not Trekkie. Trekkie has a bad connotation. Cashman says DJ was a priority. Is that true or not? I have no reason not to believe Cashman. Cashman generally is pretty honest about everything except injuries. And a lot of times, I don't think it's necessarily that he's being dishonest about injuries. I think Aaron Boone is dishonest about injuries because Aaron Boone is in the room. Aaron Boone can see what the players are having done to them by the training staff, and they're in the room. But I don't know if Cashman is dishonest about it. Cashman, he's guarded. He's a businessman. He has to put out there what he wants in the market. It's all a communications operation. Before he does an interview, if Brian Cashman were to come on this show, he would have a talking points list of answers to questions that I would be most likely to ask. What's the deal with DJ LeMahieu? What's he going to say? Well, we don't really like DJ LeMahieu. No, he's going to say DJ LeMahieu's been our MVP the last 2 years. Of course we want him back. But we have a certain amount of budget that we can spend on a second baseman. And we're not going to go beyond that. That's exactly what he has been saying. And I think it's true. It makes sense. LeVar says, I miss Girardi. I also miss Girardi. I like Girardi. Look, I like Boone too. I don't hate Boone. I don't think it's right to hate anyone, especially over sports. But I do think that Boone makes a lot of questionable choices. And I think he's a little bit too easy to push around by the analytics guys, whereas Joe Girardi is a guy who uses the analytics to make his own decisions, right? So that's a big difference. Listening to the eggheads in the front office and taking your marching orders for them, or taking their data and using your collected knowledge over 2 decades in baseball to make your own choice and to make the smart move. And Joe Girardi got it wrong sometimes, but I never felt like Girardi wasn't making his own choice as a manager. There were times where he made some dumb moves. There was that home run by Lindor in the 2017 American League Division Series. A pitch or two before, it looked like the ball hit the knob of the bat. And Girardi didn't challenge it because he didn't want to use his challenge. Only problem was he had 2 challenges because in the playoffs, you get 2 challenges. And he didn't use it. A couple pitches later, grand slam. And it would have been overturned, most likely. And he didn't listen to Gary Sanchez. And apparently the Yankees didn't like how tough he was on Gary Sanchez and some of the millennials. Well, I got news for you. Some guys need a kick in the ass. That's just the nature of athletics. That's the nature of life. We all know people who, if they didn't have to, would never do anything ever. They'd be content to just coast through life, to watch TV every day, to eat whatever the hell they want. Gary Sanchez is a guy who needs a kick in the ass. He needs that motivation. He has all the talent in the world. But and I don't want to say it like this, I don't want to say he's not committed, because I feel like if you give him the right things to be committed about, he can be. But I feel like he's not taking the initiative to get better in his weak spots. He's listening to input from everybody. He's getting corrected to death. He's a mess mentally right now. I feel like Joe Girardi had the right approach with him. And Gary Sanchez had great results under Joe Girardi. If you just left Girardi in there, I think Gary Sanchez would be in a much different place. I think that Joe Girardi was never dishonest with the media. I feel like he was truculent with the media. He would say, well, it's not what you want. He came out of the game with a hamstring pull. It's not what you want. But Aaron Boone, if somebody comes out of the game, he'll say, well, he had some minor cramping. We took him out for precautionary reasons. And then 3 or 4 diagnoses, and 6 weeks later, you find out the guy's having surgery or something. So I would much rather have Girardi than Aaron Boone. I'm not going to lie to you. Strizzy the Don says, let's not forget about Brett Gardner. LOL. Yankees need to sign him. I'm going to go ahead and disagree. And I think that, man, I wish I had a disagree button. I don't. I'm just going to say, because that's a bad idea. Brett Gardner is washed up. I can tell that he hit well. He hit better in the playoffs. But let's call a spade a spade. Brett Gardner looks finished. Where are my comments here? Window. Okay, my comments got turned off. Okay, here we go. Let's see. We need some comments here. Let's see. Pedro says, we need CeCe as a pitching coach or bench coach. And Sanchez needs to wake up or he is minors bound. I don't disagree with you on Sanchez. I feel like if you hit under 200 3 or 4 out of 5 years, it's time to start looking at revamping your swing in AAA, which I think is where he's headed if he doesn't turn it around. CeCe as a coach, I don't see CeCe as a uniform guy. I feel like CeCe is a good guy to have around the clubhouse, and loosen everybody up. I think he's a special advisor to Brian Cashman, which means he can just kind of come in and, get the lay of the land in the clubhouse, report back to Brian Cashman, hey, what's the situation in there? Oh, this guy's cool, this guy's great, this guy's a douchebag. And then that's kind of his role. I thought Carlos Beltran was a nice move. Unfortunately, he got fired over that from the Mets over that whole, scandal thing, the whole cheating scandal. So, anyway, all right, let's see. Adorno says, would you take a flyer on Paxton? Depends on how much the flyer costs, Daniel. If he was willing to come back for $5 or $6 million, yeah. But there's no way there's no way that I'm giving Paxton $10 million. If you remember the concerns over Paxton when the Yankees traded for him, it was he's always injured. I've always felt like being healthy is a skill. Some guys are really healthy all the time, and some guys just aren't. Troy Tulowitzki, great athlete, always hurt. Jacoby Ellsbury, great athlete, always hurt. Carl Pavano, great athlete, always hurt. Slade Heathcott, #1 draft pick of the Yankees, great athlete, always hurt. David Wells, fat and drank beer all the time, always on the mound. Always on the mound. Pain registers differently to different people. Some people find pain intolerable. It's why you can be sedated at the dentist. I know, because I'm one of them. I don't like pain. Who does, really? But some guys just can't play through it at the big league level. Lori C. says, I would rather have Tanaka than Paxton, and I 100% agree.
Yes, I agree.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Since Snell and Darvish are gone, are there any more elite pitchers to trade for? I'm going to throw a couple of names out there at you. And we're going to go back to Safari to look at them. The first one is Marco Gonzalez. Let me look him up. Marco Gonzalez. All right, so we're going to pull Marco Gonzalez up. So Marco Gonzalez, he's about to be 29 years old this year. He's a lefty. He plays for the Seattle Mariners. He made 11 starts this year. You can see he's not a huge strikeout guy, but look at this whip. 0.947. He keeps guys off base. He's the opposite of what Moneyball is trying to do. He pitches in a big park, and he still had a 4 ERA and a 3.99 ERA, basically a 4. So he's been consistent. What did we say before about Don Mattingly and Ricky Henderson? Consistency is good, but he got better this year. And with Matt Blake, the Yankees pitching coach, and some of the Yankees, stat guys, I feel like he's a guy that they could look at. And what did the Mariners do this year? 27-33, third place in the AL West. They are not going to overcome the Astros. They are not going to overcome. They're not going to win that division. So you might as well unload this guy who's going to be 30 while he still has value. He's a guy that I would go after. He's a great asset to have. And by the way, Justice Sheffield, their 24-year-old lefty, the Yankees had him, and they dealt him for Paxton. Look how well he did this year. Yankees lost that trade, folks. The Yankees lost that trade when they traded Justice Sheffield for Paxton. So take one off of Cashman's career, resume, I suppose. Johnny Yamin says, I'm over all this DJ talk. I want to trade for Lindor and a bunch of one-year bullpen arms. Any thoughts? I do have thoughts. I would, if I'm Cashman and I know I'm putting together a team, obviously you have some time right now, but there comes a time when guys start going off the board, as we saw with Snell. I didn't think the Yankees would ever have a chance at Snell anyway, but Darvish was a guy the Yankees could have been interested in, possibly. There comes a time when you need to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, DJ, make your decision, because we've got to construct this team. And we need to figure out if we're paying you or if we're paying somebody else. So DJ needs to, poop or get off the toilet, as they say. I don't want to say and drop swears because my mom's going to yell at me. I'll get an angry email for swearing. By the way, this is my new, you guys are getting a sneak preview of my 2021. This is what I've been working on over the past few weeks when there haven't been any news. This is going to be the live stream format. I'll give you guys a couple of other previews here. You guys saw that I worked on some other cameras in my last one. This is a preview of the watch party. So when we have a watch party, and I just put in some random lineups and scores in there. But whenever we have a watch party, I can switch between cameras right here. And then I can also, highlight comments. So let's look at a comment here. I would have to move it up here, but THG Wicked Cow, he is a mod, and he is a loyal watcher. Thanks for joining. So this is just a sneak preview of some game day stuff, and it's not final. It's all, I think it's final, but it's work in progress. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be on Unhinged New York tomorrow on Patrick Hennessy. He's been on here a few times, but he's having a trivia contest tomorrow. I think it's 2012 Major League Baseball, so I got to bone up on my 2012 stats. I remember that was a big year for the Orioles. I remember it was that was the year of Raul Ibanez with his 2 home runs in the playoffs. Tyler Williams says, we need to go for Archer. I don't like Archer. I've never liked his arm action. I think he's an arm injury waiting to happen. I don't like Archer at all as a pitcher. He seems like a nice guy. He's actually from Raleigh, North Carolina, which is right up the street from me. I think he is, anyway. Anyway. NYY Talk says hi. Hello.
Hello there.
Can you guys hear the sound effects?
Hello.
I'm always confused as to whether the volume actually controls whether it's coming out of my computer or whether it's going through on the device. So. Mosheer says there is no good relief pitcher, only Britton. I disagree with you there. I think the Yankees have some pitching lying in wait. Let's look at the Yankees' stats from last year. And I'll go through their bullpen. Let's just talk a little bullpen. David Hale's gone. Thank God. Oh, he was awful to watch. Okay, let's see. Let's go to Safari. All right, so Zach Britton had a very nice year, 1.89 ERA, but, Chad Green is nothing to shake a stick at. I know he wasn't as dominant this year as he has been in the past, but 3.51 ERA, 32 strikeouts in 25 innings. Gives up too many home runs. 5 home runs in 25 innings for a relief pitcher, not great. And that's because of that four-seam fastball. When it doesn't have that high spin rate, it becomes very hittable. Jonathan Holder is gone, thank God. Luis Cessa actually had a pretty good year. I think people forget about Luis Cessa because he was so bad early on with the Yankees. But his numbers were pretty good last year, and he was pretty consistent. He pitched just as much as Jonathan Holder. He pitched basically more than Adam Ottavino. Adam Ottavino, 5.89 ERA. God, they need to find a way to get rid of him. But let's talk about some of the guys the Yankees have that I like. Jonathan Loaisiga. I really like Johnny Lasagna, so I'm building these player reels, and whenever Jonathan Loaisiga is going to come up next year, you're going to see something fun. But Loaisiga, 23 innings, 22 strikeouts. I like him better out of the bullpen. He did open 3 times. I like his flexibility as a pitcher, but I would stick with him out of the bullpen because he throws 98 with a great breaking ball, and he's getting better and better. Very good command. 7 walks, 22 strikeouts, so a 3.14 strikeout to walk ratio. Nick Nelson, his numbers were a bit high, but he had really 1 or 2 bad outings. He's a guy with high strikeout numbers, but also high walk numbers, but I think that he's going to only get better. And I like Nick Nelson. I think big things are coming from Nick Nelson. Chapman, his numbers are in 22 strikeouts in 11 innings, obviously, so that's good, but I've never been a big Chapman fan. Luis Avalon, I'm not a big Avalon guy. And here's a guy I like, Miguel Yajure. And Miguel Yajure was the Yankees' best control pitcher in the minor leagues. Let's see if they have his minor league stats on here. Usually they do. Not always. Let's see. Minor league stats. So Yajure coming up. Oh, come on. Yajure coming up. 2.14 ERA in 138 and 2/3 innings in 2019 between A and AA. And that's because of that command. Look at these walks. 32 walks and 144 strikeouts. That's pretty good for the minor leagues. And then 2.26 ERA in A+, 18 starts. I mean, he threw a lot. He might be a guy they're looking at for the rotation. I don't know, but I like him out of the bullpen. I like command out of the bullpen. 7 innings. He did have 5 walks, but I feel like that was a product of just on the big leagues jitters. He wasn't missing big time. It was more like nibbling. So Yajure is a guy I like. He's got quality major league pitches, doesn't throw that hard, but decent command. And Albert Abreu, going to be just 25 years old. I see that 20.25 ERA, but he's a guy who throws really hard. He throws 98 miles an hour, got a really high spin rate on his fastball, and just explodes out of his hand. Let's see what he did in the minor leagues. I don't think his minor league numbers are that great either, but they've always liked his stuff. He's always been a top prospect for the Yankees. So, he's got a long minor league career. We're going to hide partial rows and just kind of look at it. He's a guy who was also a starter. He was a failed starter. They tried him with that 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and now he's in the bullpen. So, in fact, almost all of his outings in the minor leagues were as a starter. So, the Yankees do have some young arms that I like. But, we'll see how it works out. All right, a couple more questions, and then I'm going to call it a night. NYY Talk says we need a lefty. I agree. We looked at Brad Hand earlier on. I'm not sure if you were on that part of the streaming, but I really like Brad Hand, and I think the Yankees should look at him. Strizzy says Loaizaga is our future closer. I don't know about that. He strikes me more as a really good middle of the innings kind of guy, like 6th inning maybe. Like 5th, 6th inning. Maybe if you go with an opener or if your starter doesn't get very far, but you're still in the game. He's a great guy who can be a bridge, like 2 to 3 innings. He can still be dominant. But the problem is once you start throwing him 5 innings as a starter, he starts to get hurt. So not a big fan of putting him as a closer. Lori says, what did you say you were going to be on tomorrow? I will be on Unhinged New York. You can... just do a search for Unhinged New York. Patrick Hennessy hosts it, and tomorrow's going to be a trivia contest. Fortnite says, I want La Stella. I agree. I like La Stella. Oh, man, Futai, that's a great point. Futai says that Loaizaga should learn a cutter. If you go back and look at Loaizaga's his pitches over the past couple of years, and you can just go to MLB Vault. Just type in MLB Vault in Google. And basically you can look at every strikeout pitch he's had. He used to throw a very straight changeup. And I was watching early on in his career, and I noticed as we got into 2020, his changeup started to have a lot more fade down and away from lefties. He would even throw it to righties, and it would fade down and in. That's kind of a dangerous pitch because you can always drop the bat head on it. But... if you can create what David Cohn calls that scissor effect, where you're throwing something that breaks into lefties, like a cutter, and you have that fading change away, and you can also mix in that 98-mile-an-hour fastball up in the zone or down what they call over the cylinder, which is basically over the plate but below the zone. I think that's a great place to get strikeouts. So, Loaizaga's got a lot of potential, and he's a guy who's, I think, just 25 years old. He's going to be 26 next year. Johnny Lasagna. So, Adorno says, what's up with Molina? Any news on him? I haven't heard anything. I think he's just one of those guys who's waiting for everything to play out, but I think he's going to end up back in St. Louis. Mason Veronese says, does Andujar have any value? I assume you mean trade value. And I think his trade value is low right now because his exit velocity was down from, I think, 89 or 90 miles an hour in 2018 down to 85 miles an hour this year. Let's look at Andujar. I think Andujar is worth talking about, so I'm going to pull up Andujar on the Safari screen here. Okay, so Andujar, if you look at it, and they don't have a ton of analytics for him last year because he didn't play much, but if you go back, if you dig down a little bit lower, 2017 when he first came up, 96.2 on the exit velocity. 2018 when he has that great year, 89.2. And then 2019 he's playing with that labrum injury. He's at 83.6. And maybe he got a little bit of it back with surgery. Maybe he got a little bit back. And he moved up to 85.9. But that's still a far cry below his 89.2. But I will say this for Andujar. He did get better at the end of the year in terms of just how he looked at the plate. So, yeah. Moshir says, where will Gardy go? I think Gardy's going to go back home to Alabama and retire. Nathan Marcia says, Josh Hader might be a good pickup. Last year there was a lot of rumors about Miguel Andujar being traded for Josh Hader, and apparently the Yankees didn't want to make that deal. Or maybe, I think it was prior to last year, maybe the year before. But I like Hader. He's a lefty. He's dominant. His numbers weren't quite as good this year as they've been in the past, but I'm just not optimistic that the Brewers would trade him. Jesse Sanchez says Archie Bradley and Liam Hendriks in pinstripes. I think Archie Bradley has a legitimate shot. We saw him post that picture on Instagram earlier this year in a CC Sabathia jersey. But Liam Hendriks, I actually haven't heard anything about, but he's a guy that I really like as a pitcher. So I feel like, I feel like he's something that you should keep an eye on. Tyler Williams says exit velo is a crap stat. I disagree. If you ask any hitter, and I can tell you this from experience, what's their objective when they get to the plate? Aside from reaching base, hit the ball hard. Hit the ball hard. If you hit the ball hard somewhere, your chances of getting a hit go up much more. Now, obviously, line drives are sexy. You don't see a lot of hard hit, routine fly balls. So obviously, hitting it hard is going to mean you're hitting a higher percentage of line drives. So you get the clown horn. Let's see. THG Wicket 50 cal. Yeah, he says, who could we get in the free agent? I think Brad Hand is a good option to look at. Brad Hand as a lefty is a good option. I think he's somebody that the Yankees should focus on. And Liam Hendriks. But again, it's going to come down to, the Yankees are going to build out their infield first. They're allocating that money first towards DJ LeMahieu. And, if he chooses to go somewhere else, then, he chooses to go somewhere else. But then at that point, they can look at other options. Oh, I got a down vote. Thanks a lot. On that note, I'm going to call it a night. Thanks to everybody who joined. I hope you guys enjoyed the new format. I'll be back if and when the Yankees do something. I appreciate everybody for joining. Futai also says Taiwan Walker. I thought he got locked up or got traded, or I can't remember what happened to Taiwan Walker, but he's a guy whose stuff I've always liked. I know he got moved, I think, at the deadline. But anyway, Brad Hand, no team claimed him for $10 million, so he's going to cost less than that. So, all right, I'm going to call it a night. Thanks to everybody who joined. I will see you when something happens. Derek out.